Hello, YouTube community. Changing gears again. Here I'm going to exit the realm of politics, money, antinatalism, all these other things I've been talking about, and go back to music. Actually, I posted a video of me playing a tune by one of the bands I'm going to be talking about here. I love music. It's part of the passion of life that propels me forward. I'm a pianist and a keyboard player. I'm a jazz pianist. In keyboards, I do organ, synthesizer. I play rock, progressive rock, fusion. I'm pretty flexible. Band situations call for country music. I can do that. But my love is in various forms of prog rock, jazz, and jazz fusion. And so I wanted to talk about, maybe spend 15 minutes or whatever, talking about one of my favorite progressive rock scenes from the early 70s, that is known as the Canterbury Scene. It's controversial, I mean, to even call it that. A lot of the musicians that came out of this this part of Kent in England, this little village, which held a lot of importance in British history, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Well, this little sort of conservative, parochial town in England spawned in the mid to late 60s a host of progressive bands that put out music that was just amazing. And so I'm going to talk about four, well, if I can, maybe 3 or 4 key albums from that period that are, in my estimation, the ones to get, at least as a foundation for understanding this music. So, one of the most important bands of this Canterbury progressive scene, which began in with a few groups, key musicians that were from this area and some that were not, but migrated to Canterbury, formed a few bands. They got out to London. Some got recognition, some didn't, but the most important bands from this period of time that did get recognition were Soft Machine and Caravan. I mean, those are the two important ones, and they point to two, different directions altogether of the musical pathway they were going down. Soft Machine started out as psychedelic rock. In fact, they were one of the key players in that UFO club, London psychedelic scene around 1967 that launched the career of Pink Floyd. So Soft Machine was in that thing. They began to move more towards a kind of experimental rock jazz. They were throwing elements of jazz into the rock. And this was later on. This was after the whole psychedelic scene had passed. A few personnel changes took place, and suddenly Soft Machine were a kind of progressive avant-garde rock jazz experiment, mostly instrumental. The vocals began. So you have the key players in this scene. You have the drummer vocalist Robert Wyatt. You had keyboardist Mike Ratledge. You had singer and bass player and guitarist Kevin Ayers. And you had this so those guys were sort of more or less from that area of Kent, either Canterbury or Herne Bay or whatever. And then you had this really kind of half crazy, I don't know what, sort of this Australian guy, a very eccentric dude who sort of found his way to this area. His name was David Allen, and his presence in the area is what sort of really helped spark this music scene, because he brought in, he was with his wife Jilly Smith. They sort of were this crazy couple, and people in the sort of conservative, staunchy conservative Canterbury area were dying to get out there and be pop musicians. And this guy David Allen he was the catalyst that sort of pushed it all along. He turned the bassist Hugh Hopper onto tape loops, how to do these tape loops and create these montages of sound long before the digital age, So, anyway, the three most important albums to have, in my opinion, Soft Machine. Okay, now I have my vinyl copies of this stuff still, because I used to listen to this stuff in the late 70s and early 80s. I wasn't into it when it was first around, because I was only 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old when all this was really going on. But in the late 70s, as I turned 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever, that during that period is when I was really discovering this music. So Soft Machine, third. Okay, here's my vinyl copy. A key album to have. It takes most of the psychedelic jazz experimental stuff that Soft Machine was working on and really presents it. It's one song per side. There's only 4 songs on the album. It's a double album, so it's one song per side. Came out in 1970, 3 years before Yes, Tales from Topographic Oceans, which is often claimed to be the first album to do this. And it's mostly, it announces the band's new direction in a big way, because you have mostly instrumental, jazz-based, not, rock, jazz. I mean, I wouldn't call it jazz rock, because this whole fusion thing that happened in the 70s was, that was jazz rock. It was just basically taking a rock rhythm foundation and adding jazzy noodling on top. That's not what Soft Machine is doing here. What they're doing is they're sort of incorporating rock elements into a jazz structure. It's very different. It is more psychedelic, it's more energetic. There are moments of beauty on this album, particularly, I mean, I love all 4 sides of it, but even the residual Robert Wyatt composition, The Moon in June, which was written in '68, and by the time that this album was recorded in 1970, the other members of the band didn't want anything to do with that song. They wanted to do these long instrumental, fusiony, jazzy, psychedelic experiments in sound. So, but even Wyatt's contribution, and many consider it to be the jewel on the album, it is amazing. It's an amazing composition. It's just that one song alone, and you can find different versions of it on in YouTube or whatever, or iTunes, or I mean, there are different versions of this song that were recorded for BBC Radio and everything, and each time that it's played, it's just a different set of lyrics, a different approach. It's an amazing 18-minute piece of music. I mean, I love The Moon in June, but I do love the whole album. 4 songs: Facelift by Hugh Hopper, Slightly All the Time and Out Bloody Rageous by Mike Rowledge, and The Moon in June by Robert Wyatt. That's it. 4 18 to 19-minute compositions. Wonderful album. Now, the other band that really made big waves coming out of Canterbury was Caravan. And Caravan, now, I guess I didn't mention the group. The group I should have mentioned at the beginning of this, called the Wildflowers, was the hotbed of the creation of Soft Machine and Caravan. Caravan went in a different direction. They were more in a straightforward pop rock direction, with sort of medieval and psychedelic overtones to it. it was a lot different than the kind of progressive rock that other people in England were creating at the time, like King Crimson. King Crimson was much more, you know, it was more formed. It was highly symphonic. It was, you know, whereas the Canterbury sound was what one commentator called it, a slightly more stoned sound, so to speak. It was a little more, you know, kind of gothic elements and elements of a kind of Harry Potter-esque world, you know. I mean, so I'm going to show you the album. This is the key Caravan album to get, in my opinion, in the land of gray and pink. Right, just look at the, you know, you know, the cover. You're like in this kind of Harry Potter world. Only it's being presented to you not in visuals but in music. And it's like you're in a you know, you're wandering through the world of Canterbury castles and dwarfs and you know, that kind of thing. It's you're in this magical land, but it's done in a very progressive pop rock direction. You know, a way of presenting the music. It's got vocals. It's got, you know, it tells a story. And now it has 4 songs on the first side. One of the best Caravan album sides ever. The first side of this album. And on the second side is a single 22-minute composition called 9 Feet Underground, divided into these different parts. And that more or less follows the same, in my view, was following the same, along the same lines as what Caravan was doing on the album before this. So anyway, but I don't want to get into that too much. I want to recommend this album. Go get it. It's a great album. It is, in my view, you know, having that album, you know, it's sort of having this Caravan album, that puts the pop rock side of the Canterbury Scene well into perspective. It's not saying you wouldn't get any more of them. It's saying this really is the statement, you know, that they came from these guys. Now, a third album that I want to mention here, and it doesn't really, I would call this group that I'm going to talk about, they're considered part of the Canterbury Scene as far as their sound, the way they present the music, and various of the members had floated in and out of the Canterbury Scene. Actually, it does contain one member who is like thoroughly, you know, came from that scene. But this is sort of a Hatfield in the North is the band I'm talking about. They're a sort of Canterbury offshoot of sorts. Yet they only created, I think, 2 albums, a few singles, a posthumous album release. That's it. But their second album, called The Rotters Club, okay, The Rotters Club, this is the one to get. This is Hatfield in the North, The Rotters Club, is, in my view, one of the best things to ever come out of the 70s. Music. Any kind of music, American, British, anything, progressive, not progressive, disco, punk. Take all of the 70s, and this is really one of the best statements, you know, that I've ever, and it really takes that Canterbury sound to a kind of triumphant, you know, a triumphant statement, a triumphant musical accomplishment, because it has all those elements in it. It had interspersed singing bits. Actually, Robert Wyatt played with these guys, and you'll find, you know, there's actually a video out there of that took place, you know, right around the time that Robert Wyatt had his, you know, his accident that put him in a wheelchair. But this album, you know, little bits of interspersed singing, hard-driven, distorted organ parts, you know, that's what I love about the Canterbury Scene, is the keyboardists using that distorted organ sound. I love that sound. I managed to get it on 1 or 2 of my synthesizers, and I often use that sound myself. I'll probably post a few videos later on of some Soft Machine or Caravan tunes that I can play and would like to do that. So anyway, the Rotters Club. Really